Hey guys, this is going to be part two of a conversation Dr. James and I had about a week or so ago. This was, like I said, same conversation. We hit a switch in topics, so we thought it would be best to present it in two different pieces. This particular video is going to get heavier into the work that we do, specifically with veterans and military, sharing some personal stories there. And then we are also getting into how that has influenced our work, mental emotional health. And then how all of that is kind of connected to some of the life work that we do. And we get to tell a bit more of our personal journeys through school and such and all of the things. So this conversation was a little less of us trying to figure out what we're doing and what we're talking about, and really settled into some neat topics that are very close to home. So hope you enjoy. Let us know if you have anything else that you're curious about. I know we're at the early starting lines here, but we're looking forward to continuing to put out more of these recordings.
Yeah, and one of the things we've done for years that was super important to us as we started was our work with our veterans. And I think it'd be fun to tell that story. We tell that story when people come in, but we should talk about why it's so personal to us. My father was a veteran, represented disability. He had his own experience with things. Our school we went to down in Florida, the Academy for Five Element Acupuncture, they would probably be disappointed if we didn't mention them. They would host regular veterans clinic as well, where they would do some points in the ears for, that's advertised as a PTSD clinic. I think it does more than that. It's helpful for pain and stress and all that sorts of things. When we opened our first office in South Carolina, it was important that we did that for people, and it's free. It's always been free. It's always been, if you need it, come in, here for it. And we had folks that we would see and get to know their stories. It is a nice set of needles that are good for lots of things, but it is a generalized treatment that can be beneficial. And then expanded even more in our second space. And when we got here, and it's also one of those things we continue to do, expanded the offerings a little bit with the addition of more space. We've added in some mind-body practices and a bit of a yoga offering. But so with all of those things, we get to talk about why sometimes and touch on why that's important to us. And
it really has been over 10 years, right?
Yeah.
The origin of our clinic was like 2014. Yeah, it's cool to say that we've been doing something that regular for that long, and we really haven't ever taken a break in the offering of it. It's probably fluctuated over the years of between biweekly and monthly based on what was ebbing and flowing at the time. But it really is something we've offered every month pretty regular since we've opened, which I think is just super cool. So both my grandparents served, and I've got a couple uncles that have served, and it's just been for Grandpa Barry, right? It was really powerful to watch him go through that process. I got a different version of him being granddaughter, but we did get to witness him, I hesitate to use the word heal, but heal and make peace with a lot of things that he had been through, gone through, done in his life before he passed. And much to Grandma's surprise. And it was just an interesting witness of the possibility. And because we knew him personally, it just connected it in a different way. He was getting personalized treatments from the president of our school at the time, was like his origin story. But like you said, when we were in school, we also, part of our rotation was doing those clinics and participating in them. And we had people that showed up every week for the ear points, and you just got to see it help. And people show up lighter and brighter. I think the clinics have been a nice gateway for the private treatments, and it's never intended to be that. You show up to as many of the free clinics as you want, and if that's all you can do, great. But it has opened up a dialogue around what's possible within the medicine. And I think because of how we practice is so unique that it gets pitched a lot at the VA, and And there's probably a whole, a whole lot of stories we'll go down with our experiences with that between dry needling and NADA protocols at the VA and all of the things. But it's those, for the most part, have been their experiences with acupuncture and not really realizing that it can be different, that they can feel better, that they can actually process what they've been through, gone through, seen, right? We've had some Navy SEAL Black Ops guys that have some pretty hardcore stuff that have been able to just feel a little less heavy around all of it. So I think those clinics specifically have been just a cool gateway to conversation. And I think what's really cool is, and we tell our vets all the time, like, you don't have to come in and talk about anything, which is what's so powerful, whether we're doing private treatment or the clinics, that it's just show up. If you want to talk, great. Otherwise, let's just put the needles in, let you rest, and go from there. And it doesn't have to be hand holding and therapy and all of the things, which a lot of those guys really don't want. They don't want to come in and talk about their feelings. They may eventually and someday, but they just want to feel better. They want less pain. They want to sleep. They are sometimes a little cranky, but it's, it's just, yeah, it's probably some of our favorite work. I know it's some of my favorite work to get to do. Yeah, I don't know how much more we
I'm realizing as you're chatting through that, it's probably important for us to talk about the work that we do.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when they ask about acupuncture, it's sort of, oh, what can it help with? Or do I have to have something going on to come in? And you don't have to have something going on. It's a great way to continue to be healthy and live in your best life and all those things. Yeah, acupuncture can be popular for pain relief. The joke back home was always pain and fertility. We can get not hurt and we can help you get pregnant, but there's so much more to the medicine than that. We talk about our approach. One of the things that's really become a specialty over the years is the mental emotional health and the life work and like finding joy and working through some things we've been through in life. And yeah, can actually help with the back pain and the knee pain and the shoulder pain, we can help you sleep better. We can help you have more energy, but we're really good with mental emotional health. And the mental emotional work doesn't have to include, and it doesn't have to include talk therapy. There's something about the way we practice and the way we've learned the medicine that is wonderful for people to just exhale around the things that they've been through. I think that was the most powerful piece for me when it comes to working with the veterans and my relationship with my dad, just because I knew who he was. I knew he was a vet, the life that he probably wasn't planning, and a little grumpy most of the time, more than that at other times, and living an okay life. And then one day, I think the ticket in the door, we talk about the ticket in the door being usually something physical. I was finishing up my studies, and he asked about phantom leg pain. And I'm like, yeah, we can help with phantom leg pain. And he was having a little trouble sleeping, and yeah, we can help with sleep. But I also knew that if we got him started, whether he talked about anything or he didn't talk about anything, that he was also going to experience a version of the medicine that would help him put down and move through and exhale around life, the life that he lived. And it was amazing to watch him change. The joke around the house was when he started feeling a little grumpy again, Mom knew it was time to take him for his next treatment. Because it's amazing to watch the shifts in what we would refer to as spirit as practitioners. He just seemed less grumpy about it all, for lack of a better word, burdened by it. Yeah, there was some relief there that I'm not sure he even knew that he needed, but there was something magical about the medicine that was just amazing for me to watch happen with him.
Yeah.
And I've said this many times in the clinic when I talk about our veterans work, and I'm like, man, if it could do that for that guy, what I got to do that. We got to do that for as many people as we can. Yeah. That was really the birthing of it for us, was how do we do that for people? And yeah, I don't usually come in and say, hey, I've got PTSD. Can you help? They usually come in and say, hey, my back is sore. or I'm not sleeping well, or I'm dreams or whatever. We all have different stories, and they're asking for something that they just want to feel a little better. And it's always amazing to watch other expression. It's always interesting to watch the lights come back on.
Yeah.
And see, we had a person we were working with before we left. Got here, I got a message from his wife, thanking me for the change that would happen with his daughters and all of those types of things. It was powerful. But yeah, it's amazing work. And you don't really put it on the business card. I guess we're putting it out to the universe now.
We're working on it.
This is bigger than a business card. But it's powerful. They don't have to just be veterans. People have been through some things.
Yeah.
The traumas that people have lived through and their day to day, and how do we have issues, make a wisecrack about gut health, and if the effects it has on us physically. We haven't really quite made peace with what we've done in this lifetime, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We don't have to go down this rabbit hole where we talk it to death either. It really is. Get the needles in and help set the system right and see where we go. What if we get these needles in and see where it goes? It's been powerful work to do, and we're happy to do it. And we're back up to every other week here in our new space, and they are a little more private. They're still going to be mostly the NADA protocols or the battlefield protocols, but it's neat to have more space to be able to do that for people. We should probably talk about the yoga offerings too, which I know I mentioned the word yoga. It's a little eye roll, and you don't have to do the yoga. If it's an eye roll, it's okay. I don't do the yoga. So it's all right, but it's a lovely practice for those that find it and are looking for it. And it's less of a bendy flexy yoga and more of a mind body. How do I handle stress? How do I just figure out to be aware, and breath work and those gentle movements, just go through that. And Sarah's wonderful. She's been doing that for about 20 years, and nurse and all the things. We'll talk about Sarah more another day, but trauma informed, we're definitely setting up places to hold space for people to find what they need and heal.
I think that's been probably one of the more interesting conversations we've had recently. Is we've always joked about not putting it on the business card, and at the same time we know it's our specialty. It's been our specialty for a long time. And how do we don't want the categorization of that's the work that we do. We don't want people that are looking for just back pain, knee pain relief to not come in because it feels insignificant compared to the mental health and some of the challenges. But you mentioned like the ticket in the door with grandpa, and that's not saying that every person that walks in, it's a mask for what they have going on. But we also know from doing this for so long that we have even now a lot of people that come in for something else don't even really divulge any of the life stuff until we're 2, 3, 4 treatments in, and they're like, oh, I didn't even tell you that I had this going on, but I've had X, Y, Z happen to me at different stages of my life, and finding that I'm making peace with that. So it's a beautiful testament to not even needing to be on the table in the intake to be able to help and treat those things. And sometimes it's chicken or the egg. Not everything, not every injury that comes in, we're psychoanalyzing to be this mental, emotional trauma piece. And I don't know what percentage we would put on that for the purposes of this. But when we ask those questions of what was going on at your life around the time those things started, even if indirectly, most of the time there was some big life event, and it can be a positive one or a negative one, but there's just that place where I just haven't been the same since blank. And it's just one of the analogies I use with my patients is like the game Spill the Beans, right? You're just stacking beans until you do that one bean too much and everything just spills over. Whether that's a domino into something physical popping up, or, elsewhere where it's just like that one thing that's now I feel like I can't compartmentalize or control all the plates that I've been juggling. So it's really interesting process to go through with people. So I think that's part of our hesitancy of always like putting that so boldly out front, is because most people don't walk in the door wanting that kind of help. And we're seeing more of it. I think don't know if it's the stage of practice that we're in, and because we do talk about it a little more openly, or just with what's going on with people, more awareness around mental health issues and those types of things. But we do get more people coming in wanting help for trauma recovery and just feeling better. Yeah, I don't know if it's more conversation or more just personal awareness around wanting things to be different, but we do get more of that now than we did when we first started. But it's also not everybody's ready for it yet either, right? I know, and you probably have too, but I've had patients that have been around a while before they are like, all right, I'm ready to like tackle this thing. And we've all along the way, I think one of the beautiful things about how we practice is there's, again, that question and curiosity of all the work that we've done up to this point. Is that the thing that, like, okay, we take that deep breath and now we're ready to speak to it more directly? It doesn't mean we've been ignoring it the whole time. It just means now we feel like we have the resources and the tools in place to acknowledge that it's in the room, rather than, I don't know what the right like words and language is there, but the timing is always exactly what it is supposed to be. Whether that's making it into the treatment room for the first time or talking about the thing that you've never talked about. I had that experience as a student, a patient who had been seen in the clinic for years, who they knew it was in her file of some of the traumas and stuff that she had been through. So she had obviously mentioned it at some point, but it was never really addressed. And there was just this curiosity of showing up and meeting her where she was. And I remember the supervisor that day come into the clinic, and that particular patient was sitting up on the table talking about this thing that had happened to her 40 years ago, like it was yesterday. And the supervisor was like, she's never talked about this. I'm like, I don't know, like this, like, I don't, it just come out, and she was ready. And it became a topic of conversation for many weeks to follow. And she got to a place where she cried through it. She got angry. She did all of the things, and she moved forward. And she was, it was an incredible experience to have as a student, which has probably set a lot of groundwork for forward. But it's, there's so many things that happen in the treatment room that are just hard to put words around. And if you put it on the business card, it may invite some people in, but it may also run some others off. I don't know what that language is.
Well, I think there's something to be said for all of those things that happen on their own time. All you can do is meet you where you are. You where you are, I trust that things are all going to work out the way they're supposed to be for you, and about people finding their way in and feeling safe. And I'm not going to pull that stuff out of you.
You never pry.
No, I'm never going to pull that stuff out of you. And we can talk about it. We don't have to talk about it to heal it. If you can't talk about it, it probably needs healed. But we're never going to force any of that on you. We're just going to show up for you and treat what we feel like we need to treat. And it's amazing to watch things unfold. I think one of the things that's neat for how we end up there for some people is we talk a lot about joy around here. Whether it's during the tea tastings or whether it's in a CrossFit class, which strange place to talk about joy. We're training coaches right now. It's a neat place. It's like lesson number 1 is, what does your joy look like in your life?
Yeah.
Because that's going to come up in the gym with your classes. And I want to make sure that you're also walking your talk and you're doing the things the way you can show up wholly and be present. But it's attractive to people that when we get it right. I mean, I think there's a lot of things going on in the world right now where we're just living our lives and we're waking up and we're going to work and we're going home, and some of us love our lives and some of us don't. And some of us live them anyway, just because we don't really think joy is an alternative or an option.
We're content.
Yeah, and we're content, and there's all the things. But what if there was more joy? What if you could work the job you wanted to work, or take the trip that you want to take, or things that you feel like you would be nourishing to you. And I think as a culture, we don't do enough of that. So I think find your way in here and read so much about it. I think it kind of plants seeds. You know, you go home and ask your own question about what if, and next thing you know, we're in this conversations, or we're not, or you're walking in here and we were treating your leg pain, and your leg pain feels better, and then also your stress was better this week, or you're sleeping better than you've ever slept, or felt better than you've felt in a long time. It's just always interesting to see people get more out of their treatments than they're expecting to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you that this is how this is going to unfold, because you wouldn't believe me if I did. You'd think I was trying to sell you something. But it is neat to have that same sort of impact on people's lives.
And even the people that we have told in those cases,
There's been a few.
There's when they also get so far down the road and usually confess at some point, they're like, I didn't believe you. Like you told me. And I nodded and smiled and agreed with you, but I didn't actually believe you. And oh, I get it. Those stories are fun because, yeah, they usually have a little bit of banter to them anyway.
It's a neat way to approach people. And as opposed to coming in and what's broken, what can I fix and send you back out into the world? Yeah, how do we help you live your best life on all the different levels, not just physically, but where you feel good about life, family, and all those sorts of things.
I don't think most people, I think part of it too is just don't even know that they're questions that they can be asking for themselves, right? Like they've set themselves on this path for so long, or they've been on it for so long that you're like, oh, I could leave my job, or I could move somewhere else, or like you just don't even think to ask the question because it's just what life is. And we've lived in a couple places now where, and this is probably true of anywhere, but people have been generationally, and I don't know, like it's just what you do. And I think there's definitely a big conversation that has always been fascinating is like the generational piece. I know there's a lot of, even in Western world, right, there's a huge topic of like generational trauma, and not necessarily the road I'm trying to go down right now, but it's like, oh, it's just what my grandparents did is they woke up, worked the job, they didn't like their boss, but they sucked it up, got the paycheck, come home, did it, and like that's just what life is. And that gets passed down and until what if again, right? What if that's not what I want to do? Or what if I want to do something different, be something different? The permission to even ask the questions, I think, is so powerful. And that's sometimes the unsettling piece for some people. Sometimes it's fun to ask those questions. Our mischievousness, I think, appreciates like just dropping the pebble in the room and walking away, and you can react and respond and be like, no. But I think that's how we end up in Montana. It's a whole lot of what ifs, and the next thing you know, we were planning to move across the country. It wasn't the plan. It was a question.
We didn't watch Yellowstone until we got here.
Yeah, to be fair.
I'd never watched the show, and we got here. What's all this hype about? And we were already here. And honestly, I think on that topic, though, that's also how you ended up in acupuncture school.
Oh, yeah.
And most people come in here when they finally figure out that it's dad and daughter. They assume that you're here practicing because I'm here practicing, that you're doing this because this is something that I've done. It's just been part of the plan. It wasn't part of the plan at all. You had and we can get into this or not get into this, but part of your story was we used acupuncture to keep you healthy. And then you come across, you went up to the school after an injury and experienced the way that we practice, the authenticity in the way that we practice. And it just changed things on its ear. And next thing you know, you're rethinking life. And what if I wasn't accepted into University of Florida for exercise science? And I remember for the people listening, we drink coffee for 12 hours at a time and have these conversations that we're now going to start recording, not 12 hours of them. But the idea that what if I didn't go to school? What if I did this instead? And I take some pride in feeling like we nurtured that in you versus Like, oh, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, which would have been hard for me because this is where I'm at. But at the same time,
well, I had myself talked out of doing it right away.
yeah,
That was even when through the journey of getting to a place where I finally admitted to myself that I think this is what I want to explore. It was like I got into the University of Florida, and it's not an easy program to get into, not an easy school. It was a lot of work. And you get there and you're like, let me at least finish this out. Let me see it through. And then if it's something that I still want, then we'll go back and do the other another time. And I remember that conversation of being like, well, if you want to do it, why waste the time, the money, the effort, all of the things? If that's just where you're going to end up anyways, why not just do it? And that conversation, it was like, oh, that didn't even feel like an option that was on the table, not because you couldn't do it, but who works their entire life for this one thing that they wanted and just be like, nah, I'm just kidding. I'm going to go do something else. That doesn't make any sense. Right. So that we've talked about it before, but that's what I take away from that is it didn't even cross my mind. Like all my friends, that's what we did, right? You take I was a nerd in school. You take the AP classes, the honors classes, you do the thing, you get the grades, you get into college, you go to the degree. And we spent a lot of time making sure that you're going to school for what you want to go to school for. And we had all the right conversations. So none of it was pigeonholed. It was still very well thought out until it came time to consider doing something completely different. It was just never a question. I knew what I wanted to do from the time thought I knew what I wanted to do from the time that I was little. And what's really funny about the exercise science piece coming around full circle is now I own a gym, right? Like we still got there in a different way. And that wasn't part of the plan either. That is probably one of the longest internal jokes I have about myself when it comes to making decisions is any of the big things that have happened that really just light things on fire. Like none of it was part of the plan, but there was this need, what if, right? That need to lean in and explore. And our work, we hear stories all day long of people who regret not taking the chance or not trying or not taking the trip or whatever that may be. And it's, man, how would my life be different if? And I think that fuels a lot of the want to lean in and try and explore and all of the things. Cause, not that it's wrong, but I also want to feel like I don't want to get to that same place. And even when we moved out here, it was like, we could always go back or we could go somewhere different or whatever that is. But if we don't go, we're no longer in integrity with what we tell our patients every day. The question's been asked. We have to explore it. It's all a much bigger topic.
We should probably clarify too. Exploring it doesn't mean just throwing it to the wind and doing it.
No, yeah.
It just means leaning into it and like asking yourself, can't.
Yeah.
There's a lot about what we do is about connecting people back to that inner voice inside of them that kind of comes out from your heart space and it's like, hey, this is what we're supposed to be doing. The idea that we're either living the life we're intended for, which will involve having some joy because that's part of the whole process, or we're not. And if we're not, I'll have teachers who'll tell you that if you're either on your path and living or you're ill, something's out of balance. And how do we refine that balance? The brain gets in the way because it'll talk you out of things that your heart wants to do.
It's going back to my experience with going to acupuncture school. That was the experience. The first couple of treatments that I had just pulled that voice forward. It's interesting to feel this way because it was never, oh, I love the way that these treatments make me feel. I want to do this for other people. And I absolutely love the work that we get to do, but it wasn't oh, I love this. Let's give this elsewhere. It felt like it cleared the way there was just more clarity around, and it really was a what if. I remember being even a couple years into school and being like, I know I'm supposed to be here, but I don't know what I'm doing here. And we had so many conversations around that. And yeah, a much bigger story because most of my classmates were at least 10, 15, 20 plus years older than I was. But when the first question come up of going to school, it was like, was it even possible? Because it was grad school and I didn't have an undergrad degree yet. So it was like, all right, let's make the list, figure out what those boxes are. Oh, look, you had just enough credits from high school and dual enrollment to jump straight into grad school, and you still had to get interviewed. And I remember that process because they were not letting 20-year-olds into master's degree programs on classical Chinese medicine. That is, it's just not, it's not the path that people chose. And it was, yeah, it was just a different, but yeah, those choices that we lay out are, you just follow the breadcrumbs. I was sharing that with a patient the other day. That's how I think that I've chalked it up in my brain these days, is just follow the breadcrumb and you get that one, you get to the next one, and eventually look up and here we are. We're 10 years into practice of a profession that I never really envisioned myself having in the first place, but has led me to the most beautiful life. I love it. It's cool. So, yeah.
I think that sort of resonates with that I remember that conversation between you, and I remember telling you, and I like, go to Florida if you want to go to acupuncture, go to acupuncture school. But I do remember the thing I told you was when I started sitting in a room the first day and everybody introduced themselves. They were all my age. They were all much older than you were when you started. And almost every single person in that room had come across the idea earlier in their life that, hey, I should do this thing. I should go to acupuncture school. And every single one of them had said no to it. And they went on and did something else that made more sense, whether it was programming or something, whatever. They all did something different because it didn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
And I remember the message to you was, if this is what you're supposed to be doing and you don't do it now, it's going to circle back. So if you're meant to be doing this and you really, truly feel like this is your path, then why not? Yeah. Then, and now we got to tell your mom.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah, anyhow. But no, that is it. It's that inner voice to say, this is what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. I think so often these days in our society, we hush that voice and do what we think we're supposed to.
Yeah.
We live the life that makes more sense to the people around us. And then we end up, boy, that's a whole other train of thought. We end up living lives that don't fulfill us.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's conversation number one recorded. We'll edit and we'll get rid of some, but no, I think that went really well and we got to get deep. So here we go.
It'll be fun. I think part of this is it'll be interesting to see how people connect with us through this material, because I know part of our intention is to put this together in kind of a podcast form for people to listen to. Some of these little snippets may end up on social media, and who knows, a YouTube channel, like who knows.
Our little Gatesy at times, so I was putting this out into the world. Okay, I'm not worried about putting it out into the world. But I will say, if you are one of those folks out there that are a little more scholarly or a little more stuffy about it, don't waste your time telling us we're wrong. We'll just not, we're not here for that. Yeah, classically, this is how we're going to practice, whether it aligns with whatever.
Yeah.
But we're just going to show up and share.